And if we move on to the other game, which, very hotly anticipated, the trilogy clash, I'm going to put it down as, looking to hype these things up to the last. So a couple of years ago, 2022, Kilkenny battered Clare. Then last year was very tight. Clare started a little bit slowly. But the first thing, the off-the-field stuff, a couple of people have left the, I suppose, backroom team with Clare this week.
Not totally confirmed now that. Not totally confirmed that. I would definitely debate one of the two that were named. So I'd tread carefully there.
Okay, I won't name names, but there's this sort of talk going on, Darach. Is this a distraction or does it really matter?
Darach, it seems, has left the Clare backroom team as well.
Sorry, lads. Are you hearing me?
We're hearing you.
We're hearing you. Loud and clear.
Sorry, yeah. What was the question there, Shane? Sorry.
Well, it was about the backroom team and all this talk of potentially people, departing the setup this past week. And I'm just wondering, does talk of it or the reality of it, is any of this stuff relevant to the performance this weekend?
Probably not relevant to the performance. You would rather it wasn't going on. I genuinely don't know the ins and outs, but I saw something on Twitter about it last night, and that was the first and last I heard of it. The guys that were named, I actually haven't a clue what has happened there, but the main management team are still all in place, and you'd be hoping it hasn't disrupted the group in any way. And I'm sure the guys who left would be hoping that it wouldn't be the case either. They'll be hoping Clare put in a big performance this weekend. So if they did leave him, we don't really know what we're talking about here. But I wouldn't think that it would impact any of the players in terms of how they will perform this weekend. It shouldn't have any impact whatsoever. So you'd be just hoping that organizationally things are done right and logistically, everything is in place and that it won't affect things that way. But that's as much as the impact that it might have.
It's funny, Shane. It's the sort of thing that if Clare lose, it will be brought up. If Clare win, you won't hear any more of it. Realistically, that's just, you know what I mean? If they lose, it'll be, there was something negative coming into the game. The camp is not good. If they win, you won't hear of it again, realistically. It's kind of one of those things. I wouldn't be reading too much into it now, to be honest.
Are Clare back where you want them to be, Darach, after what you saw against Wexford?
Back where we want them to be in terms of still in the championship, but in a semi-final. But no, I don't think. I think similarly to Cork, Clare have an awful lot to prove in this game. We've come up short against Kilkenny the last 2 years and probably didn't do ourselves justice. And then I would say our form is a little bit worrying. Coming into the game, we probably were underwhelming in the Munster final and in the games previous to that as well against Waterford and Tip. And then I think the Wexford game kind of ended as a contest entirely once the red cards were shown. And from a Clare point of view, you'd have much rather probably that he wasn't sent off, so that you might have learned an awful lot more and you might have taken away more from the game having won it. Whereas I don't think you could take away a whole pile once it went the way it did. So. Yeah, back to where we are, where we wanted to be. At the start of the year, this is exactly where you want to be. But are you coming into it in the right form? Probably not. And we have a lot to prove in this game.
Michael, any thoughts on it?
Yeah,
you're Kilkenny man.
No, just Darach, from the point of view of Brian Lohan, this is where he wanted Tony Kelly to be at this stage, isn't it? When he was getting operated on a week or two before Christmas, the dream scenario was to have him back in form for a knockout game. He has him in form. O'Donnell is in great form. A couple of his leading lights are coming in very good form, which can only be a positive thing. Darach's under pressure again. The full back is pulling that, I might say.
I'm going to kick him out and hopefully click back in. It'll just reset. And, Joe, back in the day, would you play a Sega Mega Drive for our slightly older viewers or whatever?
I don't think there's been a better console. Now, I'll put it there. I don't think there's ever been a better one.
Well, it depended on whether you were Team N64 or... No, sorry, it was the SNES at that stage. But, when you pull out the cartridge, you blow into the cartridge, put it back in, and bang, it's good to go again. But maybe Darach's on the dial-up internet. Do the younger viewers remember or know of the sound of the dial-up modem? Are you on a dial-up modem there, Darach?
Apologies. I'm in my Limerick office here and they must be fiddling with the Wi-Fi.
Interesting you say that, Darach. I think Limerick played Clare one day in Ennis and there was big talk that there was some sort of a fiddle with the electricity that knocked out all Shawnee O'Donnell's stats and made sure that they weren't able to do any of their stats during the game. That's just rumour and innuendo now. We'll leave it
That's
there.
what held up the Munster final as well, Verney, was it?
Yeah, possibly so. Hey, listen, Tipper had a bit of FOMO there. They were missing out on something, so they had to make their presence felt.
Yeah.
We have a question for you here from What's Gone, What's Back, saying, ask Darach, would he have any problem with starting Ryan Taylor? Now, we haven't seen him since last year when he did the cruise ship. There's talk that he's back training and all this kind of stuff, but what are your thoughts on this?
I'd like to have seen him against Wexford, I think, if he was, it's very hard to come into this game from the start into what's going to be a hugely physical and intense game in Craw Park with having played no competitive hurling anyway for a long time. So
he hasn't played since this fixture last year. That was when he did the crucial. That's mad.
Yeah, so I probably would have an issue with it. I suppose. I think he probably needed to be. I'm not sure what the story was now against Wexford, but he probably needed to feature in that game, definitely to start in this game, and then maybe he's in a position to feature in this game. Hopefully he is. But I think it would be too big of an ask to come into a game like this after a full year out. Yeah,
and Darach, then we're sort of projecting the idea that maybe Tony Kelly would go to midfield, and then will Mikey Butler come out and mark him there, and will Kilkenny rejig? Or do you think this kind of opens up the game a little bit more for Kelly? Do you feel certain that he would play midfield, or could he just say, do you know what, I'm going to go into the forwards, going to go mano v mano against Mikey Butler and see who wins?
Yeah, I thought Tony it was very encouraging to see Tony against Wexford. I thought he looked, he was moving really well again, and he looked, really just tuned in and was driving on lads around him. So he did that from midfield, and I suppose the management would probably be thinking, okay, let's put him back in there again. If Butler was to come out and follow him, I'd have no problem with that. I think that whole narrative is a little bit over-egged in my opinion. But if he was to do that, I think you could put Tony at 11 and play, a fairly traditional centre forward role, and I think that could open up Kilkenny's defence, because all of a sudden now they have a new centre back in Butler, and it forces them to rejig a little bit. So that's the only temptation I would have. I thought he was a very, very good in midfield, but the temptation, if they're going to man mark him like that, would be to put Tony centre forward and see what happens.
What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because obviously Butler's had the strong arm on Kelly the 2 times that he's picked him up. But if anything, if Kilkenny were going to send Mikey Butler after someone, would it not be Shane O'Donnell at the minute if they were looking for a man marking job? Now, I don't think that's a great physical matchup from Butler's point of view, because I just think O'Donnell is a different gravy in the air, I'd say, compared to Kelly, and he's in incredible form as well. Plus, if O'Donnell does start at 11, are you happy putting Mikey Butler centre back? You're taking away your platform. It's not somewhere you generally would man mark. You'd man mark maybe on a wing, definitely in a corner. They could be taken. Then they have to rejig around. I think if Kelly plays midfield and Mikey Carey's fit, he probably picks him up and will maybe go toe to toe with him and try and spoil him a small bit. But I think Clare have a couple of nice questions that they can ask Kilkenny in that respect, and I think Shanahan, more than likely playing 14, really occupies Hugh Lawler, I think, because he's so good in the air that Lawler is probably Kilkenny's best player in the air, definitely in the back 9 anyway, and he will keep him occupied and keep him honest, and maybe even potentially mean that if O'Donnell goes inside, that he might even have to stay with Chandler at different stages. But I would probably see O'Donnell maybe out at 11 at different stages and maybe starting there, because I just think it asks Kilkenny some difficult questions. Do they play Richie Reid on Shane O'Donnell, who's not a marker and wants to sit back? Do they play Paddy Deegan on O'Donnell, who's not a marker really and wants to sit back? And O'Donnell could go to town on the 2 of those if they play centre back like they normally play. Then potentially do they push Mikey Butler out there? So I think that's fascinating. I think Clare hold some important cards going into Saturday. And I think Kilkenny will. I don't think Kilkenny will move too many pieces around to, based on what Clare do. But I think Clare could ask some serious questions on there, particularly with O'Donnell at 11.
Yeah, and just Darach, if you wanted to take up that point, but also back to Shanahan then, when Clare ended up resorting to long ball throughout the game, it was of the Munster final. It was just mad that they didn't bring in Shanahan in that game. It was like he's the one person that you have suited to this game plan, and he's sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, well, I thought our delivery and our use of the ball in the second half, particularly in that Munster final, was just poor in general. And I don't think, I don't think Shannon would have made that much of a difference because, that the primary problem there was just how they were delivering the ball in, if at all. I just go back to the point there, like, you could also bring Reedy out midfield. You could play Tony at centre forward. You could play Shane inside. I like my own club mate Ian Galvin. I think he has a big. He can feel a little bit hard done by not to be in the starting team, I think, anyway. And you could start him as well. If you're Kilkenny, I'd probably, if Shane O'Donnell's playing inside, you'd probably be thinking I'd put Hugh Lawler on him. That's the way I'd go about it anyway, because he's athletic enough probably to stay. He's their most athletic defender, and he might be the best bet to put him up. But there's going to be a lot of interest in Jules there, and I suppose the thing that Clare can maybe use to their advantage is this idea that Butler's going to come out and man mark or mark Tony Kelly out of it, because it kind of you can disrupt your own team with that notion. And yeah, there's no doubt that Butler got the upper hand in him the last couple of years. But like, if you're Tony, you're not going in scared thinking, this guy has the upper hand on me. I think Tony's going to back himself all day there.
Yeah, and so he should. Just quickly, Darach, do you expect any messing from a Clare point of view? There's been a bit of messing the last two All-Ireland semi-finals. There was, a player came in from left field, I would say, when your clubmate John was ruled out for the 2022 final. And then Shane and Verney played sweeper last year. Do you expect him just to go straight up and try and go at Kilkenny here? Are you expecting any curveball?
Look, hopefully not. I think we have to back our players, that we have the better players and that we can win the game without, throwing any unusual tactic or anything like that at it. I think we just have to go out there and say, look, we're good enough to beat Kilkenny in a game. I think, we went with the sweeper last year. There was probably a bit of fear maybe that Kilkenny's inside line would get goals, and they decided to go for a sweeper for that reason. But I would just like to see our half back line keep very compact, don't allow the space in front of the Kilkenny full forward line, who no doubt are very dangerous. And we haven't been brilliant in defence of late. So I just think the key thing there is keep it as compact as possible in our defence, and bring everyone out, try create the space at the far side of the field, and go from there. But I don't think we need to over-egg it or do anything off the wall. I just think we need to keep compact and play a fairly traditional game.
Michael, in terms of that Kilkenny attack, they will go at times long ball on top of TJ Reid, Owen Cody and Massey Keoghan. Just get it in there direct, even if it's like hitting grass outside him. And they're absolutely right to do so because they're great ball winners. And then they've got Mullen, Donnelly and Billy Ryan, who I presume will start in the half forward line. They have lads who can score from deep, particularly Mullen and Donnelly there. So there's a lot for Clare to worry about.
There definitely is. Obviously, the Clare full back line, the Clare back line maybe in general, from that Munster final, they were probably exposed in different areas. I think Kilkenny are coming into the game, boys, in very good form, I have to say. They were stuttery enough during Leinster. Different lads were missing. They basically have, as far as I'm aware, they have everybody that they would want available and fully fit. Owen Cody's over his injury. Adrian Mullen came back from about 2 months out and was man to match in the Leinster final. They've had four weeks since. I think, I just think even and I said it to you before, Shane, Cian Kenny has stepped up. David Blanchfield has stepped up. Massey Keoghan has stepped up. John Donnelly has stepped up. These are even unheralded, more unheralded players outside of TJ, Mullen, Cody. I think they're going to be hard stopped up top. I think they're very dangerous and potentially put up a very, very big score. And just on that, Darach, there were some question marks about John after the Munster final. He was good the last day. Would you just see the Munster final as a bit of a blip? He's still hurling. The last couple of years, he's made that position his own by all accounts.
Yeah, I think the reaction is funny. In the media, sometimes we overreact to like I think John got the All-Star centre back last year. I think in the early games definitely he was playing better hurling this year than he was at the same stage last year. So John's not he's not a million miles away from playing his best stuff, and he usually plays well against Kilkenny, so we'll be hoping for a big game from him this weekend. And I think the key with John and the half-back line is to keep our structure, and he's vital as the leader in that line, and just keep the Kings compact. And yeah, you mentioned there that Kilkenny half-forward line will hurt you from deep, but I think from Clare, especially if you're positioning Tony at midfield, I think the Clare forwards can equally hurt Kilkenny from that middle third. So it's going to be, look, we always talk about the middle third, but it's going to be crucial again in this game.
Darach, there's always a talk of, can a team get it done at Craw Park and all that, and on the big days. And this is something that's been thrown at Clare, and we've talked about a bit. 3 Munster finals in a row, obviously against a brilliant Limerick team. So most teams lose to them anyway. And then this will be the third year in a row against Kilkenny at Craw Park. Can they get it done? And like you've been on the team, going up to Craw Park, and obviously there hadn't been an All-Ireland one in a long time. So a team that hasn't done it can change, everything and go and win it. Like, do you see anything between the years holding Clare back here? Like the manager, is he going to throw a wobbler again, or is he going to get it right?
I hope he gets it right. I don't think, I definitely don't think there'd be any sort of a mental block or anything. And like to say that Clare haven't produced on the big days, I think is a little bit wrong. Like Clare put in huge performances in the Munster final, in the last 2 Munster finals. And I think, there's a good argument to be had there that this Limerick team are maybe the best team of all time. So to come out losing by a point, you haven't won the game, but you've put in a good performance. And I think similarly, if we put in a really good performance this week, and like I said there, if you go out and you back your team, that they were good enough to beat Kilkenny without, a sweeper or anything like that. Even if they come up short, I think you'd be happy as long as you've given your best performance. So I definitely wouldn't buy into a notion that there's a mental block or anything like that with this group. I just hope that they go up and give a good performance this weekend. And I think if they play to their potential, I would think we should win. I wouldn't
buy into Craw Park being an issue or anything like that either. Like they've only played there 3 times in championships since the 2013 All-Ireland final. One was the All-Ireland semi-final against Galway.
Shocking first halves in all of those games.
That's true, actually. Yeah, they came back from the dead against Galway. They were under big pressure. And I think they actually nearly reverted to everyone behind the ball for about 10 minutes to get back into the game. But they did and could have won that game. That went extra time. The first semi-final against Kilkenny was terrible. There's no point saying any different. But last year they had the winning of that game as well. Like it was a sharp hook out that was dispossessed was the turn of that game, and that's even taken into the fact that they were 15-10 down at half time, having played with a sweeper that they didn't need to play with. So it's 3 games. It's not like they've played 10 games at Craw Park. So I wouldn't buy into that at all. Being honest.
And even that, I think the first Kilkenny game, the semi-final 3 years ago, was kind of systems failure all over the field, and it looked like we just lacked energy. I think we probably put everything into a Munster campaign that year, and we're dead on our feet. Last year, okay, tactically maybe we got things a little bit wrong. We corrected them at half time, and it wasn't. You had the short puck out that was turned over, but you also had maybe the best save I've ever seen from Owen Murphy off Peter Duggan.
And even the Mark Rogers block by Conor Fogarty, Kilkenny did well win that game now.
Yeah, so small margins, So you hope you get a few things more right this time, and that you can get over the line. And in terms of mental block versus Kilkenny, I think it was great to beat them in the league final, come up against them, beat them in the league final, and that should cast aside any notions of that. But you still have a big game that you have to go out and win this weekend, and it's not going to be easy.
Darach, we'll ask you for your predictions in a second, but just any thoughts on Henry Shefflin and Davy Fitz leaving the Galway and Waterford jobs respectively this week?
Two nice jobs for the CWE now, lads.
We don't look, Verney. We both charge petrol money, but split the cost.
Yeah, sure. I suppose what Henry had done 3 years above, and obviously last year was going to be hugely disappointing for him. That developmental provincial Leinster's developmental provincial championship, isn't it? So you'd be expecting Galway to get out. So you'd be expecting Galway to get out of that. They have good enough. They definitely have a good enough team to be qualifying out of Leinster, and not to do which they'll be hugely disappointed. So And then I was surprised actually the day we finished up, because I thought that things were probably more positive this year than they were last year. So I was a bit surprised by that.
Okay. And then your predictions for this weekend?
I think Limerick will win, and I hope Clare will win.
Oh, not totally full of confidence.
Look, yeah, I suppose I'm not overly confident. I'm hopeful. I think it's a very, very close game, and it's probably I think it's probably 50-50 really. I wouldn't be. I could say Clare, I could say Kilkenny. I wouldn't really believe it. So that's just where I'm at with it.
Okay, well look, Darach, really appreciate you joining us, and no doubt your X account will blow up after saying a couple of those things.
Don't tune into that anymore, luckily.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Darach. Good man.
Okay, I can't wait to go to Craw Park this weekend, and I don't even know which game I'm more looking forward to, but you know that it's going to be a sellout on Sunday, Cork Limerick, so that kind of makes it even better.
Yeah, I think there'll be is it actually a sellout
Well,
now?
it's heading that way.
We're going to get very close. Yeah, there's so much on the line in it as well. Like historically, if Limerick are going to be beaten and the drive for 5 is going to be stopped, it's going to be Sunday, because Kiley is 16-0 in finals and Connacht is 24-2-1 in finals. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen on Sunday.
So are you telling me that if Clare won on Sunday, which would mean a bit of the hoodoo is over, because I think they do get a bit spooked at Craw Park. Like their performances in Craw Park have not blown me away at all, and they do seem to have a bit of a problem. But if they get over that on Saturday, I think that to me shows that they've jumped that fence, they're ready to go again in the final. Surely they'll be built up and timed nicely for a massive performance against Limerick, who will have the hype of a lifetime around them.
I'd have to see the manner of the victory, but I would still strongly fancy Limerick going into the final. Yeah, I just in terms of teams getting the job done. We just did a piece for the paper today. It's a big thing. Jordan always said it was a big thing winning the 6 NBA finals that he was in. Even Jim Gavin, Gavin's record is outstanding. It's 18-1 in finals, which is can you remember the only final he lost?
No.
2018 league final when Dean Rock hit the post to level against Kerry. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's the only final he lost over Dublin. I'm not counting O'Byrne Cup, I'm counting league, Leinster, which are obviously weren't going to lose, and All Ireland's. And Brian Cody's lost a fair whack of finals. Definitely, he lost 5-6 All Ireland finals maybe. So what Kiley and Connacht are doing is outstanding, and I do think if they're got their semi-final record is not unbelievable. Beat Cork after extra time in 18, beaten by Kilkenny in 19, struggled past Galway by 3 points in 20. They beat Waterford comprehensively enough. I think it was 11 in 21. Beat Galway by 3 in 22, and got lots of it for maybe 40-45 minutes last year against Galway. So they haven't lit it up in semi-finals traditionally. So it's just a hurdle that they'll want to get over on Sunday. So
they've played 12 halves of hurling at Craw Park, excluding extra time in 2018. 12 halves of hurling Limerick have played under Kiley at Craw Park in Championship. How many have they in semi-finals now? So there's 12 halves in the semi-finals they've played. How many have they lost?
Jesus. I have a feeling that the record is not unbelievable for half. I'd say they've lost a good few first halves. They've actually lost 2 first halves and 2 second halves. Okay. You have the first half and the second half.
I was trying to find, one of these handy little patterns to make a good hook to start an article with. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out quite as nicely as I was after. But if we just bring this up again, are there any matchups that you're really looking forward to seeing here? And if you were Kilkenny, where would you be thinking we can get change here? Would we be going after the newcomer in Conor Lean, who's been brilliant? Would we be thinking, let's drag John Conlon out of the centre and see what they do about that? What would you be looking at? Yeah, I wonder will Mullen go in there centre forward at different stages and cause a big question, because he's going to play anywhere but centre forward. But he might maybe not drift as far as he has in other games and cause Conlon to not really be sure whether he sticks or twists. As you mentioned there, Conor Lean looks on paper the inexperienced player that they should have a go at, but he's been outstanding this year. In fairness, he's
taken to it like a duck to water. So I wouldn't. I think Kilkenny will have a job around the middle of the field as well. He's been, as I said, he's kind of changed his game the last couple of years. He's turned into a real workhorse, which I wouldn't have pegged, because he's a bit of a flair player. Like, he can deliver all the flicks and do all the passes. Who he picks up around the middle of the field is going to be a big one as well. I think there might be a stopping job in it for him. As regards, I just don't know if Clare are going to be able to handle the Kilkenny forwards, and just the variety within that forward line. Like, they all offer something completely different. You have Mullen kind of drifting and scoring from distance and picking off ball from distance. TJ maybe as a ball winner, and he'll obviously pick off probably a couple of points as well. Owen Cody is just this serious goal threat, head down at times. Mossy Keown probably the same. Donnelly can just really hurt you from out the pitch with his wrists, anywhere from probably 80, 90 yards in. Billy Ryan is maybe not been talked about as much, but he's playing. This has probably been his best year so far, and he's probably keeping Tom Phelan, who was brilliant in the All-Ireland final last year, out of the team at the minute. So just the other question I'll ask you, Shane, of the four teams, and I've kind of said this before, of the four teams, Clare are the one where free taking has been an issue, and they've changed free takers. And that's not ideal. Like, Mark Rogers is hitting frees in the All-Ireland semi-final. He ended up hitting them last year, actually, as well. But, like, Aidan McCarthy was hitting the frees for long stages. Duggan has hit frees at different stages. Kelly seems to hit long-range frees. And now they have an inexperienced enough free taker at county level, I'm talking here. And, like, you just can't really afford to miss one at this level. And I'd be fairly confident that TJ will be 9 out of 10. And I'd probably be the same with Hoggy. And I'd probably be the same with Callan. That's just a question mark with Clare. And that's not a question mark on Rogers per se. It's just he doesn't have the muscle memory of hitting frees like those other three lads have at the elite level.
Yeah, funny actually you should mention it. Feels like it's been sorted now, but Limerick had a few mishits for frees earlier in the year, both through Burns and Gallan, but I'd imagine that's sorted. And there is that swirling wind up at the hill end, because obviously it's not as covered and enclosed as the rest of the stadium. So I do agree with you, but, like, to be fair with Rogers, he scored 8 out of 11 placed balls. That includes 65s last year. And there was one free which was close enough in towards the end last year. So I presume he went for a goal. So of pointed attempts, he probably scored 8 out of 10. And if he does that, that won't be too bad. It certainly won't be a disaster. And if David Reedy starts, you remember he was first choice free taker a few years ago. And I don't know if he ever actually did anything wrong. I don't think he ever blew up on the frees or whatever. I think it was more maybe somebody else came in and took them over. But, like, he is an option as well. And who knows if they've had a chance to work on it. Did they get a day where they could come up just to walk around the pitch and, take a few frees or whatever?
You wouldn't be let on the pitch. Would you stop? No, you're not let on. You might be let walk around, but you won't be able to carry your hurl anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Wouldn't you love to be able to go and do that? I'm wondering, like, if you're Clare here, would a good way to go about it, and it's easy to say here, but just drag yourself back down the pitch a nice bit, because you obviously want Conlon somewhat positioned in the D, but he has to be able to match up with whether it's Donnelly or Mullen or whoever. Would you try and think about, right, let's get Fitzgerald quite deep, let's get Rogers deep, let's try to get everyone pretty deep and drag Kilkenny up the pitch, something that they're very good at avoiding over many number of years. And maybe keep Shanahan and O'Donnell high up the pitch. Now, you can argue the toss over and maybe keep Rogers up the pitch and Will Shanahan start. And try and drag Kilkenny up the pitch. And maybe, because you've got a lot of players who are quite swift here, quite fast, have decent hands, and you have a bit of speed coming behind you with Ryan and McInerney, maybe try and work it through the hands a little bit. Try and run it up the pitch, draw Kilkenny on you, and then have the space to deliver inside to O'Donnell, who, if he gets good ball, he's in business. So maybe they have to do it a little bit differently this time. Now, I'm not saying massively different. It has to be every ball like that. But a few times, can they try and work it through the hands around the middle, like Limerick do, like even Kilkenny do at times, and like Cork should definitely do this weekend? Do they have it in their locker? Or is it going to be back to the Clare, plant the feet and set fire to the ball and drive it 100 yards down the field?
Well, it can't be, because that they won't get a result that way at the weekend. If they leave the two players you suggested there inside, if you the right two lads to have inside anyway, if you're going to play that, you obviously have listen, you have an out ball with both of them, don't you? And you can deliver lovely silky ball into both, probably particularly O'Donnell there. As Darach says there, one of the big keys is just exploiting how good a form O'Donnell is in, and just feed him and feed him and feed him and keep feeding him until he says no more, no
Feed
more.
me
You
no
know what
more.
I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like he's capable of putting a team on his back at the minute, and they just need to keep getting him the ball where possible. And listen, at times, any sort of ball that's even out to the side or anything, they just need to get him on the ball. Like, one player that we haven't talked about is Dermot Ryan, and it's going to be interesting to see whether they send Dermot Ryan maybe after Adrian Mullen, because that didn't really work in the Munster final when he was sent with that kind of a job, and it kind of took away the brilliance of Dermot Ryan going forward. So I wonder, will they try and keep
when he doesn't shoot all the time?
No, but when he's shooting on the run going forward, I think he's quite good. When he's shooting feet planted 100 yards, it's a little bit different. But when he's allowed, like Dermot Ryan set up the third goal for Clare, didn't he, down in Cork as well? He was man of the match, I think, that day. Like that, I'm talking about that type of a role. But I just didn't think the tracking role particularly suited him in the Munster final. So it's going to be interesting. It's just fascinating because you have two managers that are trying to play same across the two games. Two managers that are trying to force their print on the game, and it's just such a wrestle between them. And you think, if we play this guy here, can we get a strong arm there? And it's going to be fascinating. But it looks like you have two pretty evenly poised games. But I do think it's going to be, for the third year in a row, a Kilkenny Limerick final.
Conclan 95 says O'Donnell has been one of the only men to stand up against Kilkenny the last 2 years. Need others to join him. And he also said before that 15 versus 15, Shane, and have at it. No more about it. Like, when I'm talking about, the tactics that I was talking about there, working the ball through the lines a little bit more to try and draw Kilkenny out, and use the fact that you have some brilliant ball carriers in Kelly, in Fitzgerald, in Rogers, who's been really good at carrying the ball at times as well. And he's so clever. He's able to get the head up and find player. I'm not talking about, going back and like playing a blanket defense here or anything like that. I'm just talking about a different way of moving the ball up the field. You still go relatively mano a mano.
Yeah. Oh no, totally. Yeah. But just as, on what you're saying there, again, I wouldn't be totally ripping up the script, and I'd be keeping it.
I wouldn't be like, I'm not talking.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying to you. I think the Clare message needs to be simple enough now this week. And listen, they play like that. They're capable of playing like that. It wouldn't be something that's totally alien to them, but they definitely don't need to throw some sort of spanner in the works like has happened the last couple of years.
Who's got the best six forwards? Pick your six best forwards from between those teams.
Okay, I'd have David Fitzgerald one wing. I'd have TJ at 11, Mullen at 12. I'd have O'Donnell at 14. On Cody, 15. I can't leave John Donnelly off though. Tony Kelly's probably going to be playing midfield, so I'm kind of.
You're looking for.
Is he not? Do you not think he's going to play midfield?
He could be, but he's basically going to be a forward who's playing a little bit deeper.
Still think it's fair forward line. Fair. I tell you what though, it's one thing picking the six. I think overall Kilkenny have a better forward line and a stronger forward line. I think their six are stronger.
Yeah, I'm backing Kilkenny to win this game as well. Yeah, I think they will. If Clare produce their very, very best, I think they can win this game. But I think there's a Craw Park hoodoo there. Joe, I don't want to be proven right on that, but it just feels like, shame me once, fool me once, shame on me. You've done it a couple of times now, so I'm not going to back against Kilkenny 3 years in a row to be beaten by Clare. So I think you have to go with them. We didn't actually give our tuppence halfpenny worth.
I love these types of questions because no matter what way you debate them, like you're wrong. But what's gone, what's back? Would any of the Clare full back line get into the KK full back line? My full back line would be Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, and Adam Hogan. That would be my full back line. And
actually, Owen Cody is surely out for revenge after the league final because, Hogan did rather well on him.
I did very well. He was man of the match the same night. And like I wouldn't place much stock in the league final. Kilkenny were missing TJ the same night. Would TJ have converted the penalty that Owen Cody missed? I think he would have, and that's just very simplistic. If that was the only impact he had in the game, then Kilkenny would have won the game theoretically. So yeah, no, I wouldn't place much stock in that. And yeah, I do think Cody will be out for a bit of blood, definitely. And Hogan was giving him the big one the same night as well, as you have to do when you have one up on a fella at times. Yeah, and I think Kilkenny will win. I think they'll win by 3 or 4 in the wind-up.
Who's going to be the highest scorer in the championship at the end of this weekend, Hoggy or TJ?
Yeah, whoa. TJ will end up with...
It's level at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 699 each of two, I think. Yeah, I think TJ will end up with about 11. And Hoggy will end up with a bit less, a small bit less. But I think TJ will have another game to add to his tally this year, and Hoggy won't.
Okay.